Okay, we're gonna get started here in a couple seconds. Greg Dean, Mr. Greg Dean. I love saying his name, Greg Dean. I'm gonna tell him that. I'm gonna tell that. I'm gonna say, hey, Mr. Dean. I like saying your name. Okay, here we go. Mr. Dean's online. Okay, Mr. Dean. Okay. Yeah, gotta get rid of that. You beat me to it.
How are you? Let's see. Let me get that going. There we go.
Mr. Greg Dean.
Hey, how are you, Brother Bob?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much. You can hear me just fine, I assume?
I can. Can you hear me okay?
You're perfect. You're perfect. It looks like you like to read like me.
Yeah, I read a lot. Those are mostly comedy books, those particular ones. Went through a phase of magic books for a while.
Okay.
And NLP books and and humor theory books and papers and all that stuff. So it's years of doing lots of stuff like that.
I can imagine. Yeah, sure, go right ahead. You know, it's been a while. It's been, I want to say about 4 years in the making for me, making this journey to you right here, right now.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your perseverance.
Well, you know, things happen for a reason, and I thought that, you know, the one thing that grabbed me about you was the video that I kind of took and kind of spiced it up. I thought, you know,
I remember. That was so nice of you, yeah.
I love that video so much and inspired me because, you know, I'm one of those guys that that really likes to put things off until it just boils up inside me and I just have to do it. But I do want to talk about you first because you're an interesting fellow. You know, I just think that, you know, you've been started out what, juggling as a clown, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I started out, actually did a lot of theater in high school. Happened to have an amazing drama coach. I mean, we do 5 productions a year and then 2 full musicals every summer.
Okay.
I mean, it was like summer stuff. I mean, it was great. Did that for a lot of years, all that, you know, and then I taught myself to juggle and took some mime classes and actually went out to my public parks in Modesto, California and performed for people. Anyone, you know, go to picnic tables and do a little show for them.
Just to do it, just to keep moving.
That's the kind of obsession that I had on performing, is that you just, you know. So I was, because I'm from family alcoholics, I started seeking therapy at the junior college.
Okay.
And the therapist there, he went, after about my 5th visit, came in, he says, first of all, I don't think I'm helping you, but he says, but I'm getting better. You're fucking hilarious, man. All I do is sit around and laugh. I have a great time. And he gave me a Ringling Brothers application for their clown college. And I filled it out, sent it in, they accepted me. So.
And you were, how old you were at this time?
22.
Okay. Wow. That's a pretty big gap between graduating high school and then making that journey, hey? Because this is where my kid is right now. My kid's actually pursuing the, you know, the drama, the arts, moving in that direction. And I said there's a lot of growth that happens when you step outside of that. First of all, your friends change, you change, things change in a very short period of time. Wow, 22 years old, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I just went off and joined circus and did that for like 4 years. Then I moved to San Francisco, became a street performer there, and then started doing Renaissance fairs. Renaissance fairs, I used to make like $850 a day, cash, back in the mid-'70s.
Wow.
You know, people.
Wow.
I worked twice a year. I worked the Northern Fair and the Southern Fair. Took all the cash, put it in a safety deposit box, and lived off of it, so I could stay in town, go to clubs and go to acting classes and improv classes and stuff. So then I became a paid regular at the Comedy Store.
Okay. Okay.
And my name.
And this was what year was this, Greg? If you don't mind me asking.
Probably 78.
Wow.
78.
Well, in a Comedy Store, man, you get your name up on that wall, you're it.
Yeah, my name's on the wall.
Wow.
So I'm still a paid regular if I want to go back and start performing again. I've stopped performing completely since I recovered from cancer. So cancer survived.
Congratulations on that.
That was amazing and big. So anyway, did a lot of improv, taught a lot of improv, had my own improv troupe, which included Andy Garcia, and we used to go down and train improv at the La Jolla Comedy Store, which included Whoopi Goldberg.
Okay. Right.
And opened up my classes, started teaching those, and and then I got the weirdest job in the world. I was the opening act for the male strippers at Chippendales.
Well, that had to be very interesting.
It was. It's basically it was pretty much like burlesque, except for the strippers were male. I'd get up and I'd do a 15-minute opening set, which was really hard to do. It took me almost a couple months to figure out how to play that crowd. And I wasn't really intimidated by it. It was just hard. I mean, because I'd done so much street performing, I wasn't intimidated by crowds. Just the woman wouldn't stop yelling, "Take it off."
Right. Kind of messes up your rhythm a little
Yeah,
bit.
the timing and stuff. So I finally figured out how to do that. Once I figured out how to do that, and that's one of my favorite things I ever did as far as figuring something out. I'd come out, I'd be introduced as, you have to be somewhat quiet so you can hear every lewd and lascivious thing this man has to say. Oh, they'd cheer that, right? So I'd come out and I go, I got some bad news and I got some good news. The bad news is I'm not going to take off my clothes. And they would cheer.
All right.
The idea was I was getting them to pull a joke on me and say, "We don't want you to take off your clothes."
That's smart. Yeah, and you made them make that assumption.
That's right. They get to pull a joke on me while saying, "Oh, I have to shut up because he's not going to take off his clothes." Then I don't get to yell, "Take it off."
And it took you 3 months to get there?
Yeah, figured that out.
Wow.
And that was a hard one. I mean, I tried a shitload of things. I mean, I tried a lot of things trying to figure that out. Is what I was trying to do.
You were joke mining for 3 months.
Yeah, I was, I mean, I didn't know the joke mine back then. I mean, I invented that probably in the late 80s through the 90s, early 90s.
Okay,
When all that came to me. Yeah, that was its own journey. But, Chippendales was great. I mean, once I learned how to play it, because I do that, I'm not going to take off my clothes. The good news, I'm going to talk dirty to you. They'd cheer again, and I'd go, "I'm your foreplay."
That must have really worked well
It did.
for quite a while.
For the rest of the 3.5 years I was there, it did great. I mean, once I got that key, and I had an MC one time who didn't read my intro correctly. Went to him and said, "Hey," and I got him the job. I said, "Hey, read my intro." Like, there's this thing I'm doing that has to, set them
Come together, right?
Yeah. And the second show, he didn't read it properly. He just didn't give a shit to even pull it out. He just said whatever the fuck he wanted to say. And I pinned him up against the wall.
Well, yeah, this is your act
Yeah.
here. This is your job.
Also, the shows don't go well, and then the dancers are pissed because they're not making as much. I mean, I could whip that audience into a frenzy, laughing really hard, loosening up all that sexual energy and tension.
Right.
You're releasing these big laughs, and if you know how to work like the rhythms of tags and working things to build and build and build, by the end, when people are screaming and applauding, having a great time, thank you, and I walk off.
Oh, man.
But if the start doesn't start, Jerry Seinfeld used to say, "Smooth on, smooth off makes a good show." And smooth off is always better, but smooth on is really the trick. If you get a smooth on, then the show goes much better. And this guy was making not a smooth on for me to get on. And I just, it's like, how can I, after a couple of communications going, "Look, please, real sincere, straightforward communication. You really need to do it this way. Oh yeah, and then not do it. I got upset. It's like I got him the goddamn job, you know.
Yeah, you got him the job.
Job, help me out here.
It seems like a pretty selfish guy there, obviously, because he didn't see where you wanted to be.
Yeah, well, I think the whole
there.
job of an MC, though, is a frame, not the picture. That's
exactly.
The MCs. How can I make everybody else look as good as I possibly can? I train MCs. We do MC training in my advanced classes. And there's like probably about 10 things that most people that try to be MCs are doing completely, I don't want to say wrong, ineffectively. They're just fighting the purpose. They're there for.
It's a skill and an art form
well,
at the
there's
same time.
This thing. It's like, even I saw this, Jerry, for you and anybody else who's listening, there's a thing on HBO, and you can find it on YouTube or something. It's called Talking Funny with Gervais and Louis C.K. and Chris Rock and Jerry Seinfeld. And a lot of good things in there and stuff. And they talked about that. They talked about smooth on, smooth off, all those kinds of things. So, anyway, I forget where I was going with that. I like that. I went back.
I love being lost.
I'm going.
I love being lost.
I'm going.
That's why I got a whiteboard.
That's why I have a whiteboard. Some of the things I do in PowerPoint. MCs. I guess Louis C.K. introduced Seinfeld one time. Said this man's really funny. He's hysterical. He's going to really make you laugh. Here's Jerry's. And after the show, Jerry came to him and said, "Don't ever do that again. Don't do that." Right. Because audience goes, "Oh, really?" And they get an attitude, right?
Right. Wow.
I'm going to decide whether you're funny or not not be told. And that's one of the big things for MCs that's really important. They all come out and go, "This person's really funny." Da, da, da. It's what I call sets the wrong expectation.
Right.
See,
right. I can see where the MC would make that mistake because he thinks he's doing him a favor.
Yeah, but especially in open mics where people aren't usually very funny and stuff, some shows where comics are working their way up, they're getting experience, they're not very good, and they're introduced that way, and it just makes a bad situation worse for them, and again, it's just a piece of information that I've learned over the years about how to introduce people, and this guy just was bad at all of them, Then let's see. I did that for a lot of years. I was doing really well at that time. And then I took all that money and went to film school, wrote and directed a short film, sold it to cable TV. That was
excellent.
Yeah, and then I found NLP, worked with John Grinder for 2.5 years, side by side. I taught side by side with him a lot.
Wow, yeah. Tony Robbins is really good for putting it out there, but wow.
Yeah, John's the source. And I'm better than Richard. Richard kind of was. It was really weird. John Grinder and Richard Bandler. They were kind of like Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader. They both had these incredible insights into how the mind works, and they studied all these things, and they could do hypnosis and all these. John was really trying to do the good. And Bandler was more like, "Hey, we can manipulate people into buying shit."
Right.
And John was like, "We want to influence is that you're helping somebody attain their own goal, not yours." And that's what I liked about John. John was real clear that he wanted it to be a positive influence. And he taught me modeling, and I started modeling out comedy. I was already kind of doing it, but then he gave me the model for the model. He kept saying it's not a fundamental unless you have a sensory explanation for it. How does it affect the senses? How does it affect the mind? And that, every time I'd get stuck, I'd always go back to that. Like even the joke diagram with the 3 mechanisms. That's how I kind of uncovered all that, which was to go, well, expectation and surprise had been around for a long time, since Aristotle. And that was really important in humor theory because it was the first time somebody went, there's 2 parts here. It has to have 2 parts. You have to have this expectation and surprise thing. Now, that's not necessarily true now in humor theory. That's kind of been debunked, but that was a good start. That it was, and where I came along and I went, expectation as a result, following John Grinder's advice, was, well, what's my mind doing?
Right.
And I realized I was making assumptions. And
we all do all the time.
Right. It's constant. But you see, as soon as you know what people are assuming, you find out what exactly they're assuming, what's causing them to assume something, and then it dawned on me, then I could create it. First, the thought was, it came to me in a dream, actually, for the joke writing system. I was working on it, and I took a nap. I was tired of proofreading and woke up, and I went, one assumption's the setup, and a different assumption is the punchline of the same thing. Holy crap. And later turned into target assumption and reinterpretation, right? But that was the way it organized originally in my head was, these are two different meanings of the same thing. They're both assumptions, still an assumption. Even the second one really is an assumption.
Yes.
Because you can use it to tag a joke. If you say, for Father's Day, I took my father out, only took 7 shots. Okay, we assume he got shot, and then you tag that. Then you tag. I could always drink him under the table. Now shots means something different again.
Okay.
The fuck were you doing under the table?
There's that.
Yeah, and so that's kind of the whole. That's where that started, and then the joke writing system kind of bubbled up out of that. And I think the other thing that was really powerful about that was the punch premise and the setup premise. I'm the only person that I know that has really defined the premise. But if you watch really great comedians, they do this. A premise is just a negative opinion about a subject. In other words, what are you going to talk about, and what's your position? Louis C.K., my 4-year-old daughter's an asshole. Right? Chris Rock, women won't take a step back in lifestyle. Those are all clear premises. Because
this is where I stand here.
Yeah, exactly. That's what are you talking about? And what stand are you taking? What position are you taking? That's how I get to know you. That's your message. Right. Right. That's the message. That premise is the message. This is what I'm talking about, and this is my stance. Those are the and then all the jokes that follow are simply examples of that premise.
Hey, Greg Dean. I train stand-up comedians. Yeah, okay, I know. How do you train stand-up comedians? Yeah, I get it all the time. People ask me how to train stand-up comedians. Okay, here's how I go about training stand-up comedians. First of all, I've been teaching 25 years, so I have a technique-based approach. Techniques. I teach techniques. That's what I teach. Okay? Let's make a distinction between the craft of comedy and the art of being funny. The craft of comedy, I can teach you. I can teach. It's joke structure, it's joke writing, it's scene work to find the jokes in the scenes, it's riffing. Hello, what's your name? What do you do for a living? Those kinds of things. It's emotional honesty, getting your point of view really, really clear and taking a stance about things you're talking about so we know who you are. I can teach that because comedians have been doing that since the beginning of comedians. So those are the fundamentals. Then there is the art of being funny. Can't teach it. It can be learned. It can be learned through trial and error. You see, people need to be able to get up and fall down and do it wrong and do it right a whole bunch of times in a row to figure out their own comedy voice. And they need the freedom to explore safely. And I give them a safe environment to be bad. Because if it's worth doing badly until they get really, really good. My approach is a lot like sports. Take football. Anybody can run around on a field and kick a ball and try to block it. Want to be a great football player? You learn the fundamentals from a coach. You learn your footwork and passing and the plays and on and on and on till you're really good at those fundamentals. You're drilled in those fundamentals, and the coach pushes you on the football field, and then you practice those and you get better at them, and the coach is there encouraging you and picking you up when you fall down and telling you it's okay, you can get through it. That's the way I train stand-up comedians, you see. But they have to have a safe place to be bad, and they're going to be bad for a while until they get really good. Matter of fact, I find the people that take the bigger risks and are the worst in the beginning are the ones that are really good later, because they've figured out the secret. Mostly what you learn is what doesn't work, and you got to get through that. So my approach is teach them the fundamentals and then put them on the stage. That's what a coach does, and that's what I do. The safe place. They have to have a safe place to explore, to be free, to find their own individual sense of humor and their comic voice. Individual sense of humor and comic voice. And that can only be attained by giving them the freedom to explore. And that's how I train stand-up comedians. Any questions?